Well, hey, here's another episode, and this is going to be a little more personal today. I'm going to share a little bit about my story, and I think it will help a few people out there that are listening, and that's why I want to share it. It's not just for me to document it for myself, which who know, maybe there's value in that to kind of to have that recorded and reminding myself. But this was actually a few weeks ago. I shared this when I really crossed over a 10-year milestone back in June here of 2025. And it was 10 years from when I joined the John Maxwell team in 2015. And then now we're entering the 10-year mark of when I actually started my coaching business, which followed that shortly after. And it just has had me really reflecting. I knew this was coming. I knew as I started 2025, as a new year came, I knew I was entering the last leg of a decade. And it kind of blew my mind. If you think about the things that have gone on in the past 10 years, there's so much of anybody's life, and so it's hard to believe that 10 years have already gone by. But I did feel like I needed to share about this because I think that there was some really important lessons I've learned that a lot of leaders go through, but maybe don't talk about or maybe haven't even processed. And the title of my blog article was From Pain to Purpose, and it's about the power of a decade. So the power of a decade from pain to purpose. And if I look back 10 years ago, I was in a tough spot mentally, emotionally, spiritually, professionally, definitely was really what was driving it. And I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know what to do next. Had been in the middle of a leadership crisis and turmoil at the church I was serving at. And I won't go into details about all that, but it was the catalyst for all the change that did come about in my life and led me to join the Maxwell team, that led me to start my business. And it's one of those things where I've told people at times it was like God used that to kick me out of the nest, so to speak, because I wouldn't have necessarily, I'm sure I wouldn't have jumped and taken the leap on my own, even though during a few years leading up to that, I was starting to feel more restless in my career and felt like there was something different ahead or something more. And ultimately, a lot of my book, From the Way to Greatness, is really talking about that. That there was this nagging question, the nagging thought that a lot of people have is there has to be more to life than this. And that's what I was feeling back then. And I didn't know what to do. I knew only what it was like to be a pastor in a local church. I've been doing it at that point for, uh, at some level, for about 18 years. And it was tough because I didn't know who I was or what I would do outside of my ministry job in a local church. Now, the job itself wasn't a problem. It was the leadership challenges that I was navigating, and honestly, I wanted out. And my fight or flight or freeze tendency, there was more at that point flight. I think now it'd be more fight, to be honest. 10 years later, all the lessons I've learned, I probably would have fought, which may not have been a good thing at the time, by the way. Um, but I was in a kind of run and hide season, and yet I didn't know what I would do if I left my job. And so I started interviewing and talking to different leaders in different industries that I knew around the area where I live and got some great insights, but nothing was really clicking until I stumbled across the John Maxwell team through a local woman who has since become a friend. And it was just something simple in an email. At the bottom of her email, she just mentioned that she was a certified member of the John Maxwell team. And I responded to that email and asked her, said, "Tell me about this. I've seen this thing. I don't really know what it's all about." And long story short, she introduced me to what the program was. I ended up signing up in June of 2015, went in August of 2015 to my certification event, which was in Orlando, Florida. And it was in that event, that conference, that training, that I literally felt like I heard God say to me, "Chris, your family story is changing. Your family story is changing." And I had no idea what that meant at the time. I think at that point I had started my business kind of informally, and I wanted to start it more formally, but I was unsure of how to do that or what to do still. But I was really on the brink. I was very close to actually getting my LLC and starting things just within that zone of time. But I just knew that something was shifting. And I remember coming home and talking to my wife and saying, I think things are changing for us, and I don't know what it's going to look like. There was a part of me that was certainly, had that fear and trepidation on one side of my mind, but then there was also the excitement and the enthusiasm about all the opportunities and what could be. And and I couldn't have scripted the last 10 years at that point. I had no idea what anything really looked like. And the journey has been harder than I would have ever anticipated, to be honest. But that being said, I wouldn't change a thing. And I think that God is gracious to us and lets us go through things blindly, because if we really knew what we were saying yes to or stepping into or going forward in, a lot of us wouldn't go. If we knew how hard certain decisions would be, if we knew how challenging certain seasons would be, I don't think many of us would step forward. It takes a really brave person, and bravery comes, with taking steps of faith and doing it afraid, as they say. But I don't think I would have done the things that I've done in the last decade. I'm sure I wouldn't have done the things I've done in the last decade without God intervening and even using a challenging, difficult season or stretch to move me into a new season. And so now I'm a decade, beyond that, and I have perspective, right? And I think as leaders, it's easy to forget to really look back and learn from the seasons we've just come out of. And that's another big lesson I've learned over the last decade is life comes in seasons. Our careers happen in seasons, right? Our kids don't stay young forever. I mean, when I was going through that 10 years ago, my kids were 9, 7, and 5. Right now, they're turning 19, 17, and 15. They're not just teenagers, they're like mid to late teenagers. So much has changed in our family. So much has changed. Even my wife, at that point, she had actually was in a different teaching job. A year later, she changed school districts and has been there ever since. Um, so much has changed. We moved houses in the midst of all this. We changed from the house that we had initially moved to. We were renting that for a while when we moved to Ohio, and we bought a house in the same neighborhood down the street about a year after I joined the Maxwell team. There was just so many moving parts and pieces during that season. It was very unsettling, and it was hard, and it was hurtful in some ways, but it was good at the same time. And if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. You wouldn't want to do it again, but you also wouldn't want it not to have happened, because now with perspective you can look back and see here's where I am today because of what I navigated and persevered and existed and pushed through back then. Perseverance was a big lesson for me. I'll say this, I everything up till then that I can think of really came easy to me from my when I was in high school and stuck and trying to figure out what do I do beyond high school. That decision to ultimately go to Christian college and become a youth pastor, that while it was a hard transition to get there, once I was there, everything from that point on started to really flow smoothly and easily for me. Being accepted into the college I went to, getting internships. I had 3 internships during and after college when I had friends who were struggling to get one that they needed to meet their school requirement. My first job came easy. My second job came easy. My third job came easy. Everything had been flowing super easy. And then I hit this wall and I didn't know what to do because I had not been tested. And in fact, during all this time of this past decade, my oldest son, Ryan, he was playing select soccer and he had a coach at one point for about 4 years that honestly was just he was a good tactical coach and trainer for the boys, but he was not a good coach when it comes to how to lead and how to inspire and engage his players. And he was rough, and a lot of the kids quit. They left the club. They went elsewhere. They quit soccer altogether. Ryan did not. He stayed with it, and every year we kept asking him, like, "Is this what you want to keep doing?" And he kept saying, "Yeah." And some of that was he had close friends on the team. He didn't want to leave, but some of that was he was just, I think, getting stronger. God was building his endurance and his perseverance, even as a child through middle school, in a very impressionable time of his life, to have more perseverance and grit. And I was going through it as somebody in my mid 30s and into my 40s at the time, for the really the first time the way I ever had to. And I'm glad he learned those lessons young, so that hopefully, as he goes up against his own challenges as he moves into his adulthood, career, family, whatever, that he'll have much more perseverance and perspective on that. And I think he will. But for me, it happened midlife, and it was disruptive and it was hard. But that pain that I navigated, the hard stuff I navigated, cleared a lot of the clutter in my life and in my heart and my mind and my soul. And it helped me really get a fresh vision and perspective. And, I look back, and there were times, I remember there were moments where I was like, okay, I wanted to quit because it was hard. But I remember thinking, you know what? You've come too far to quit. Like, what are you going to go back to? If you go back to the thing that you came from, you know how you felt and the way things were then. You wanted out of that. So why would you go back to that? The challenge was I was in this no man's land, so to speak, where I was stuck in the middle of what I call the valley of becoming. I've talked about this before, I think, but where it's like you're in a mountain range, and on one mountain you're where you are, and you look across the valley, and you see another mountain, but in between the two is this valley, and it's in that valley where you have to become a new version, a better version, upgraded version of yourself in order to scale that next mountain. And then you reach the top of that mountain, you look out and you see another mountain you want to climb, another vision, another direction to go. And guess what? You got to go back down into that valley of becoming again to become strong, wise, ready, prepared to go up to that next mountaintop. So those are lessons I've certainly learned over the last decade. It's been hard at times for sure. It's been extremely rewarding, and I've done things that I never thought that I would do. I've written two books. I've created multiple video courses. I've started this podcast. I've actually started two podcasts because I had one for my first book, The Way to Greatness, the Great Life podcast, which is kind of archived right now, but it's out there. Um, this, podcast, even though I've been a little sporadic over the last, couple years with it, I think is going to ramp up with more interviews with people and more content I'm going to share. Super excited about maybe where this goes, just as another resource for everybody. But um, if it wasn't for the pain, I wouldn't have been able to do the things I did because I had to step out and do new things. I'd never built websites before. I've done that now multiple times. I'd never learned about marketing before. I've done that and am still learning and growing. I'd never spoken to business leaders. I've done that a lot in the last decade. You know, Shifting from my inner circle or my social circle from my ministry network of pastors and church leaders and kind of I'll call it the Christian bubble that I was in, very well networked, very well connected there. I didn't, I wasn't engaged with the business community, but that came with all this journey. I started network and meet a lot of people. Um, I was elected to our Chamber of Commerce board to be a board member uh, right before 2020 and COVID hitting. That was an interesting season. And then ultimately, I stepped into the vice president role at the chamber to help lead, to help serve our businesses. So, there's just been so many things. I never saw myself coaching CEOs and executives and their teams and doing workshops and training in companies, but I've had so many opportunities to do that. So once again, I'm saying all this not as a resume building podcast for, my own purposes, but to tell you the pain drove me to the purpose driven business that I now lead. It drove me to doing things I wouldn't have done or maybe even couldn't have done because I wouldn't have had the platform. I wouldn't have been out in the business community, in the marketplace the way I am today. And so as much as, like I said, we don't want to necessarily repeat the things that are hard, I think we can certainly go through them and then be thankful that we went through them for the lessons we learn and the people that we become. I was actually just reading again the other day, just somebody mentioned, it's easy to get destination disease, as they call it, where I'm not satisfied until I reach that destination, that vision, that goal that I have. But the reality is the way we can truly experience what I believe the life that God wants us to live is to truly embrace and enjoy the journey we're on. And knowing that the hard parts are part of the journey, but there's a lot of great parts in the journey. There's twists, there's turns, there's ups, there's downs. But if you realize that it's all part of you becoming that better upgraded version of yourself, that you're going to be able to not only survive it, but thrive, and then ultimately be able to reach back and help others survive and thrive and navigate it. I'm telling you, there's nothing better. We don't want to go through the hard stuff to be helpful, but we have to go through the hard stuff in order to really be helpful to people. Your journey, your purpose is connected to your past, your pain, your the challenges you've dealt with. But I know it's not easy. I know nobody wants to say, "I want that. I'm going to sign up for that." But at the same time, that's what builds us into the people that we need to become in order to help the people that we ultimately once were. And that's a lot. There's a lot of lessons in that. There's a lot of things that I'm truly grateful for as I reflect on it. And there's so much more. There's so many other stories and details that I could, go on and on, but I don't think I need to get my point across here. I just want to encourage you to think about what is it that your pain, your past has actually set you up for future success in. What are your struggles? What are your trials? What are the things that you wrestled with and had to navigate? What did those things teach you? And how can you take those lessons and then now help somebody else navigate in their own way? Our journeys are all unique to us, don't get me wrong, but there are similarities that of what other people are going through that can allow us to help them. And so I want to encourage you to really think about that. What have you gone through that allows you now to help somebody else navigate in their own season, their own challenges? Because when you figure that out as a leader, as a human being in general, you have a lot of power. You have a lot of authority to speak into people's lives, to really help them, develop them, show them the way forward when they don't feel like there is one. Shine light on the path that they don't think is there. Let your pain lead to your purpose. Let your pain be purposeful. Don't just dwell on it and feel bad about it, but think about what did I learn through the pain that I can now apply in helping other people. If you do that, you're going to become a magnetic leader in the sense that your story will be attractive to people. People that need your help will be attracted to you. And then you can help them engage in life and in business or whatever the case may be, and you'll be able to help them thrive. You'll inspire them. You'll motivate them. You'll show them that yeah, you might be going through some tough stuff now, but if you just hang on and keep moving forward one step at a time, big things can happen. And that's actually one of the biggest lessons that I remember my uncle shared with me back when I was starting. He said, Chris, he's like, just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. And I'll never forget that he told me that. In fact, I wrote that and it's on a card over here on my wall that I write a lot of note cards with things people said or quotes I've read that are helpful to me. But just keep moving forward was one of the best pieces of advice that I've heard. And it was so simple, but it was profound, especially at that time. But it's still profound because every time we become something new, we accomplish something new, we've reached that new mountaintop of a new place. Um, there's new challenges and new mountaintops, new mountain ranges to pursue. And I think as leaders who really want to experience great things in life, I think that I think we have to just settle in our heart, our mind, our soul that the good doesn't last forever, but neither does the bad. And the bad stuff, the tough stuff, makes us stronger, gives us more perspective, makes us wiser and smarter to navigate challenges that other people haven't gone through yet. And when they face those challenges and they're like, I don't even know where to begin. And you're like, well, let me tell you how I did it. You may not have all the answers and the perfect answers for everybody. I know I don't. But your story can help somebody navigate their journey. Your story of your journey can help somebody else navigate their own journey. And if you'll keep perspective on that, it can truly be a game changer for you, but not just you. And that's what I want to encourage you to think about today. So, hey, if I can help you in any way, or if maybe you're saying, hey, I don't know how to kind of put the pieces together, let me know because one of the things that my good friend Mark Williams has created and what I help people through alongside him is what we call the life map. And what it is it's looking back at your life from the time you were born up till now, whatever age you are. And it's really looking at what were the key moments, what were the defining moments in these different seasons, these different ages of your life, and what were the lessons that you learned? What were those experiences preparing you for even up till today? It's a powerful exercise because your life is not just a bunch of accidents. Everything that has happened to you has actually happened for you and for other people, whether it was by your choosing or whether by somebody else. All the things that have happened in your life can be used to be a blessing and to be valuable for your future you and those that are like you, that are where you once were. So let your pain lead to your purpose. And think back even to just the last decade. What were the things you've learned over the last decade, like I've been reflective of? What has happened over the last decade? What have I learned? What have I done? And how can that help inform and fuel and prepare me? What does it prepare me for the next decade? Because if you start to do some reflection on that, you'll start to see some threads and some hints of what's to come, and you'll be prepared because guess what? You've been prepared. You've been preparing for the last decade. You've been preparing all your life, actually. So take care. God bless. I look forward to connecting you next time.